Hey, could it be? Is it so? Yeah, we back. Check it out, brother. My brother, me and my brother Craig, we gonna come through and we gonna talk about some real things today. Today we want to talk about the definition of a man. So listen, I'm sure there are plenty of you ladies out there that are wondering just how and where this show is gonna go. If you really want to know, come on and check us out. And brothers, if you on, come on and chime in too. So with that being said, guess what? The experience begins right now.
Let the music tell your body how to move and feel. It can serve as medication, so no need to pop a pill. Satisfies your heart's desires and allows the mind to heal through the therapy. Music tell your body how to move and how to feel. It can serve as medication, so no need to pop the pill. Satisfies your heart's desires and allows the mind to heal through the therapy.
What's good? What's good? What's good, man?
What's good, homie? Everything going on, bro?
Hey, listen, if I had your hand, I'd throw mine in, bro.
Hey, man. Then listen, I got something going on. Shoot, yo, bro. It's good to be back here with you, man.
Always, man. Appreciate the I know your day's been crazy today. That's why we're getting started a little bit later. But I definitely wanted to say I appreciate the sacrifices you make, man, to make this thing happen.
Yo, definitely, man. Listen, when I'm in, I'm all in. You know what I'm saying? And my thing, right?
As they say, you are a man of your word, right?
Yes, sir. No question, man. No question.
Nice little segue into what we're gonna be talking about, huh?
Yes, sir. Most definitely. And that's why they pay you the big bucks. Yes, sir.
Listen, I wish, but hey, soon enough, right?
Yes, sir.
But like you said in the intro, man, we're going to discuss, and I say discuss because I'm very cautious to say anything is right or wrong. So we're going to have a dialogue, a discussion about the definition of a man.
Yeah, man.
And I gotta let you know where this came from, bro. Like, and I'm sure you and I have conversations, off screen, just in general. But I'm always inundated with other people's opinions, right? Other people's opinions of what men should be doing, what defines a man, what a good man is, what a no good man is, what the difference between a man and a boy, the difference between a male and a man. I mean, everybody has an opinion. And you know what they say about opinions, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
We only know what it is.
Oh, I was about to go in and say something. All right. That's right. Just about, man, that's my father's favorite saying, boy.
But yeah, man. So it just confounds me sometimes, man. I look at this society, I look at this culture that we're in right now, and one of the things I hear consistently, one of the questions I hear consistently asked, especially as it pertains to relationships, right? Relationships between men and women, is, well, what do you bring to the table?
Boy, oh boy,
what do you bring to the table?
That table, boy.
Right? And the thing that amazes me is that every time that question is asked, there's an emphasis that is placed on monetary, like the finances.
Yeah.
There's an emphasis that is placed on the material things, house, car, there's an emphasis on those things. And I'm always confounded because I've been in a situation, you know, I'll be a little transparent. I've been in a situation where I've had my highs and I've had my lows. I've made six figures. I've had stuff repossessed, right?
Yes, sir.
That stuff, none of that's guaranteed. None of those things are guaranteed. But what constitutes you as an individual is really the only thing that you can guarantee.
Most definitely.
Right? And if we're talking about the dynamics of what constitutes a man, there are things that you need to demonstrate, you need to exhibit, you need to possess that earn you that title. Because it's not something that's just random, or it's not something that should be randomly handed out.
I agree.
In my opinion, it's truly something that needs to be earned.
Yeah. Well, you know, man, I view this thing as, I do agree to an extent that it must be earned, but I also agree. I think that what I would pair with that is the fact that we have the ability, not the ability, we are born men. We're born men. And unfortunately, you know, the only difference is, let me get my thoughts together here.
Okay.
The only difference is that as a baby, we are not able to express maturely as men.
Mm-hmm.
And as we grow and as we matriculate through life, you know, we become the men that we already are.
Mm-hmm.
But the trick is the additives of everybody else's narrative.
Is that N-word again?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So
you know,
let me ask you this before we get too far along.
Yeah.
Now, are we? I heard what you said. So you said we're born men.
Yeah.
Now I gotta do my due diligence, and I gotta ask: are we born men or are we born males?
Most would argue and say that we're born males, but I argue and say that we are born men.
Okay.
Because
go ahead.
What truly makes a man is the purity of his character.
Okay.
And as children and as babies, we are as close to pure-hearted as possible. And as we grow, we take on other people's narratives and other people's ideas and other people's opinions, and it makes us into something other than what we were already created to be.
Okay.
So, you know, that's why I say we are born men. We are born men.
I see your point with that, and I love that. You know, I agree with you that as a child we are probably as close to our truthful selves as we will ever be.
Yeah, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Right then and then right before you die. Right.
Yes, sir.
That's the closest to your truthful self that you'll ever be.
Definitely.
There's always been, and this could be part of the narrative, there's always been a part of me that has felt that we were born males because that's our gender, right?
Right.
But the things that were poured into us is what determine, well, we're going to be men regardless. Mm-hmm. But what kind of man we turn out to is going to be a result of the things that are poured into us.
Most definitely.
And one of the things that I think is always excluded from the conversation is emotional maturity.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
We are, you know, when we go back to those narratives, right? we think of some of the imagery that men are supposed to be, right? I'm an old guy. You know, ain't no secret to that. I'm an old guy. You know, I remember things like, you know, the Marlboro Man and, you know, all these people that were considered, you know, manly men, you know, the guy from the Brute guy and all, you know, from the cologne, the commercials and stuff. You know, all of these things that were considered to be manly men, right?
Right.
That we later on discovered were were a breeding ground for narcissists and abusers.
Yeah, most definitely.
Right?
Most definitely.
But never in any of those things that were shared with us did we get the part of being a man is learning how to be vulnerable, or at least vulnerable enough to understand or work with or comfort. Or you good over there, man?
Yeah, oh, that ain't me. That's the guy next to me.
Right. You know, the things that were that emotional component that allows you to be of comfort, that allows you to be of service, that allows you to step outside of the physical attributes of what people consider a man to be, and more along the lines of what an emotional provider is supposed to be.
True.
But you know, we kind of get caught up in it.
Man, again, that's someone else's narrative, you know? And in order for us to truly be men, what happens as we grow and we take on other people's opinions and ideas and narratives, what will allow us to be men again will be the stripping off of those narratives, the stripping off of those ideas, the stripping off of those societal norms. And then we'll find the man buried beneath all of that. So, you know, what people really don't understand is that men are buried from the cradle to the grave. We're constantly being buried under somebody else's narrative, somebody else's ideas, some government's thoughts, some society's ability to brainwash and make. So, you know, if we just learn and you know, dealing with the vulnerability you're talking about, I think it's that we have to learn how to be invulnerable in order that we can know who we can share that vulnerability with. So it's the process.
Well, one of the narratives. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish up.
No. I was just gonna say we're born vulnerable, and then we become invulnerable to learn vulnerability again. Because just because you were born vulnerable doesn't mean that you understand all of the inner workings of that vulnerability. So you have to construct invulnerability to deconstruct and defrag yourself and really learn what vulnerability is really about.
Did you say defrag, bro? Did you hit me up with like an
yes,
IT
sir.
term?
Yes, sir. Got to defrag ourselves from this programming, man. Society's programming. Yes, sir.
I hear that. Well, here's the thing. You know, continuing along the topic of narratives, that narrative of vulnerability is supposed to be taboo for men. Men aren't supposed to be vulnerable, right? I give you a great example. Good friend of mine, right? I mean, he's a good dude. Nobody would ever look at him and think he's soft. Nobody would look at him and think he's weak. Like, you know, you look at him and you respect him for his physical appearance initially, right?
Right.
When you get to know him, then you respect him for his intellect and his compassion and his love of community. So you respect him for those things as well, right? He doesn't, like, he checks off all the boxes, right? But he was sharing with me that when he was raising his son, he wanted his son to be tough. He wanted his son to be, you know, strong, right?
Yeah.
So he was joking around with now his son's, you know, in his 20s now. He was joking around with his son, and he's like, "Yo, man, give me a hug." And his son's response was, "Yeah, imagine that."
Wow.
Right? And it wasn't a disrespectful thing. It was a thing of we had never had that kind of interaction before.
Right.
This isn't our norm, right? You was always the man up, buck up, do what you need to do, get it done kind of thing. And to that end, his son is that kind of dude. His son's a stand-up guy, very responsible, gets it done. I mean, he is definitely, has followed in his father's footsteps, right? Where if you look at one, you're looking at the other. So nobody would ever question his manhood. Nobody would ever question his compassion and love for community. You wouldn't question those things. But that component that's missing was that emotional component. And the funny part was when my boy said, when he said that to me, it hurt. And I'm like, I get it, but how do we arrive here? Right? We arrived here because you followed a narrative that you thought was appropriate. Right. You thought was going to be what was necessary for your son to have the best advantage of success. Right? Mm-hmm. And now that we're here, you're like, right? Now there's going to be some defragging that has to go on.
Yes, sir.
Because that grown man has now has to adapt a different type of philosophy in this new world order, in this new culture that we're in.
Yeah, man. And I mean, it's funny because before we can begin the defragging process or the deconstruction, we must first investigate what the issue is. And with that particular situation, it happens in so many different men's lives, because we're not taught how to be sensitive, how to be vulnerable, how to show affection, because in this world, we're taught that number one, a soft man is really, you're no good for nothing except funding another woman's pockets or taking orders. And I think they misconstrue that every man should have a soft side. Mm-hmm. There has to be a balance. There's a part of me that, I'm a warrior and I'll snap your neck if you mess with me or my family. But then there's another part of me that says, I've grown in understanding. I've grown in wisdom. I've had experiences that brought me to a place that understands that if I act just like this all the time, then that will be exactly what I get back. So I have to make sure that I even my karma out. There's got to be some softness. There's got to be some intimacy. There's got to be some affection. And, so what has to happen before he can deconstruct that situation in his relationship with his son, he got to know, like, Dad, what were the things that I did? What were some of the teachings that I poured into my son that made him this way? And then when you understand what those teachings are and you understand how you got there, then you can formulate a plan on, number one, how to redeem and to recover the sensitivity, the vulnerability, and the softness of the relationship that a father and son should have. Because we got the hard parts. As a father, we got the hard parts. We'll smack our kids up a little bit, you know what I'm saying? We'll take them to the park and play some basketball, take them to the gym, lift some weights, talk about girls, all of that. But then when when it comes to teaching them on how to embrace understanding, embrace knowing that everybody's not going to be like you. So you have to be vulnerable. You have to allow people in order that you can get something out of the relationships that you allow in your life.
There's that word again, relationships. And,
yes,
and I think you would agree that one of the most vital things in any relationship is some sense of balance.
Yeah, man.
There has to be a give and take. And as you were talking about, the things that are necessary, like the prerequisites for defragging this young man, it occurred to me that so many of us, especially in our culture, grew up and were taught from the survival manual.
Yes, sir.
As opposed to the manual of evolution, the manual of, hey, here's the experience that we should have. It's one thing to survive life and it's another thing to live life, right?
Yeah.
But for so many of us, we were taught how to survive. And nobody ever tells us that there's chapters after that. Like there's another manual that comes after that. A lot of people say, hey, listen, I got him to the point he's strong. Can't nobody take him out of here. That's great. That's great. But once he gets to that place where he's no longer struggling to survive, where does his life begin? Where does he begin to live his life?
Most definitely. Most definitely. I think you said something that triggered a thought. You know, a lot of times we think that we're raising strong young men and strong young women. And in fact, we're not raising strong men and women. What we're raising are invulnerable people. To be invulnerable means that you don't even have the chance to get in. If I'm invulnerable to something, there is no space that allows any interaction with you. So there's no need for me to be strong because I'm invulnerable. But strength means that I've let you in. I've given you chances to affect my behavior towards you, to affect my behavior even towards myself. That's where strength and character is developed. When you learn how to navigate relationships and navigate and matriculate through going through ups and downs in those relationships.
You use one of my favorite words, bro. Character.
Yes,
character.
Sir.
To me, that is what really begins, and I emphasize begins to define a man.
Yeah, man.
That character.
Definitely.
I've been in situations where I've been down, and I've been in relationships, and I didn't have a lot financially to contribute to that relationship.
Right.
But I still held down that relationship in a way that a man should. And I'm not talking about so many people tie that to something sexual.
Right.
Listen, I'm gonna keep it a beam. There's a penis on every corner. And regardless of what you think, yours ain't the best. Right? So I promise you, let me share a tidbit of wisdom that I've gotten to at 55 years old. I promise you that ain't gonna keep a woman. Right?
Not a real woman.
That's not gonna do it.
Not a real woman.
Right? So, exactly. Right. So these things that you're attributing to your manhood, these things that you're saying, well, you know, I held it down because, you know, I knocked the bottom out. I held it down because I did X, Y, and Z, or I held it down because I punched somebody in the mouth. Those things in and of themselves do not make you a man.
Right.
Those things make you an individual that is searching for what manhood is.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
You're acting out in ways, you're acting out in physical ways because emotionally you don't know how to channel this energy.
Most definitely.
But like you said, the strongest person is the person that's not impregnable, but the person that allows you in and gives you the opportunity to impact their lives for the better or for the worse. It's a chance. It's a crapshoot, bro.
Yeah, bro, you ain't never lied.
It's a crapshoot. Even when, listen, you can check off, there could be 100 boxes, you can check off 99. This is still a crapshoot.
Yeah, man.
Because you never know what the experiences of this other person that you're allowing in, what's going to trigger them, how they're going to move, how they may change. You can't guarantee tomorrow. What you have today ain't guaranteed tomorrow.
So true.
But
so
if
true.
you do your best as that man to have consistency as part of your character, then it helps in the relationship. It helps people have some sense of comfort in a relationship that this person I can count on. This person I know is going to do the best that they can. And if something should fall outside the parameters of what I expect from them, I know it's not what they did intentionally. I know it was something out of their control.
Man, it's wild because even though it's a crapshoot, this is what I choose to rely on, even when things are crapshoots. People's choices those are definitely crapshoots.
Question.
How people will treat you based upon their emotional response, crapshoot. But one thing I always rely on is the fact that everything must work together for my good.
Come on.
Everything. And that principle does not work if you don't know it.
Right.
Because the first 3 words
is, for we know that all things work together for my good to them that are called according to his purpose. And my thing is, we have to begin to really allow experiences to arm us with the knowledge that we need to become the best man and best women that we can be for those women that are watching. But for us to become the best version of ourselves, we have to allow in those experiences, whether we label them good or bad, whether we label them negative or positive. At the end of the day, you need a negative and a positive to get a charge.
Exactly.
So my thing is, in order for me to go out and really impact this world, I need those negative experiences. And I need those positive experiences. Because without the negative experiences, if all I knew was positivity, I could not help my brother through his negative situations. So what happens is he becomes heavy to me. But when I allow the balance, and the same with negativity, if you're always negative, you're a threat to my very survival. Because eventually I'll buy into your negativity, and I won't be able to navigate life with a good outlook. And if I can't navigate life with a good outlook, I'll manifest a horrible life. But when I do it right and I have the balance, then the words of the song become very true. He's not heavy. He's my brother. And you can pick him up when you're down. And then when you're down, he can pick you up. It's all about that symbiotic relationship of brotherhood and manhood. And it only comes to fruition when there's balance.
That I'm just listening, man, and it's discouraging. I'll be honest, it's really discouraging sometimes that so many men have not grown in the ways that they need to grow. So many men have bought into the narratives of things that they see in media, either televised media, social media, printed media. So many men have bought into those things, and they choose to emulate that image, to emulate that idea of what manhood is. They're listening to people that don't have their experiences. They're listening to people that haven't shared any of the culture that they've been exposed to. They're listening to people who have had a different set of circumstances systemically, emotionally, and in other ways that can't really relate to you as an individual. And that's really what it comes down to. You as an individual. We share a culture, but you and I have had separate, we've had individual experiences that have all shaped our lives, individually, right?
Yeah.
What? Because there are some truths that we have gravitated towards. There's there's a connection. There's an energy that lives within us that allows us to see the power in that other one.
Yeah.
I see the power in you. I see the man in you, right? And I'm not threatened by that man in you. There was something in how we were brought up. There was something in things that we ascribe to as individuals that allowed us to see the man in the other person that put us in a position where I'm like, I mean, I could be like, man, I don't think he all that because he can play some keys, man. She ain't about to play some keys, right? I mean, I could say stuff, or I don't think he come up with this. He always use that word symbiotic, man. He looked that John up on his little calendar. There's any number of ways I could take some of the stuff that you and I experience, but because we have bought into a certain truth, it allows me to see the man in you and respect that man, and allows you to reciprocate that.
Definitely.
But far too many of us are not there, and because we're not there, we're letting other people, other entities, other systems, other campaigns, if you will, dictate what we're supposed to do. So they used to call TV the boob tube. Man. And it was such an appropriate term back then, right? Because people would just sit there and veg out and watch TV for hours on end. If TV is the boob tube, I don't know what social media is, bro. Because social media is down like eight steps from the boob tube.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And isn't it crazy how the programming has gone from what you labeled as the boob tube to being something that feeds us visual stimulation. Now it has become something that actually allows us to interact in our own destructive behaviors and destructive thoughts, and it's just like, yo, the evolution of this thing has been amazing. And if we don't evolve with the times and teach our children from young ages how to combat this systemic destructive behavior, then we will have grown adolescents running the streets. We will have people, you know, when I walk the streets today, I look, I'm like, yo, this is like nobody is a prime example. Here's a prime example. In Philadelphia, there was a woman who was on the train, and she got raped on the train. Not an empty train car, a car that had many people in it. And they stood there and they watched this woman get raped. That says to me, number one, there wasn't one man on that train.
Not a single one.
Not one man on that train.
Not a single one.
What was on that train were either a bunch of scared children, or you had a bunch of disgusting human beings.
Or a combination thereof.
Most definitely. Because at some point, you know, my manhood won't allow certain things to go. When you're a real man, there's just certain things we're not going to allow.
At all.
You can say certain things that I might give you a pass, but as a man, even, and this is something that we should always have as a man, there are certain things and certain that should never be touched, certain principles. Never put your hands on an old person. Never put your hands on children unless they're yours and you have to discipline them with a spanking, not a beating, not a whipping, a spanking. Much different. Those two principles should always be in play. The third principle kind of is in flux because you should never put your hands on a woman. I'm going to say this, and it's going to be very controversial.
Come on with it.
But there are some women who consider themselves to be men. We might call them lesbians or whatever terminologies others want to use. And sometimes they get up in your face like you a dude, and they throw that first punch. And at that point, at least, you know, thank God it's never happened to me. But if it did, I would have to grant you your request for equality. I just would have to grant your request because it's obvious to me that you want to be treated equally as men. So I'm going to show you what this is about.
Well, wait, let me get myself together. So, but you said something, and those were some of the golden rules. Like we used to have those things we called the golden rules.
Yes, sir.
Those were some of the golden rules. Those golden rules permeated like every aspect of life, right? They permeated the people. They permeated the community of people who had kids that were going to school, getting good grades, and going to grow up to be, you know, successful. They permeated the community for kids who were out in like running the streets already, and they became like a set of boundaries for those kids, right? Even if those kids were in the street life, there were still rules that you had, right? Like you said, you don't mess with old people, you don't mess with kids, you know. You still protected the women of your community, right?
Definitely.
Those were some of the golden rules. Those things have gone by the wayside because I go back to that emotional vulnerability. Because let me say it like this: I've never been a person that has wanted to hold a woman back. Never.
Right.
I know that a woman is able and capable to do, you know, the majority of things that I do. And I say majority because there sometimes are physical limitations that prevent women from doing it. So I'm going to say majority, right? But as far as like a job, you know, as far as career wise, as far as creativity, we're peers. There's nothing that I can do that you can't do, right?
Right.
So I've never been that person that has envied or been on the outside of a woman who's really wanted to have a career. If you wanted to be a police officer, you want to be a lawyer, doctor, whatever it was, whatever is going to make you financial, an entrepreneur, whatever it was, I'm all for it. I'm your biggest cheerleader, right?
Definitely.
But some of these, somewhere along the line, the narrative began to take hold that taking on those roles made you better than. And I'm like, ain't this a twist? Because I'm gonna take it back. Because in the 60s, when women's rights was an issue, and you know, women's equality was an issue, the premise of it was that men were saying we're the alpha dogs and you guys are supposed to be subservient. And that was primarily because of the things that we could attain, the careers, the money, those things that we could attain. Now that you've been given the opportunity to do that, and you've gone through that women's movement and been given equality, now you're doing the same thing. Where they do that at? How, Sway?
Bro.
Where they do that at? Right? But those are some of the challenges that are encountered in our community.
Yeah.
But listen, before you go there, because I know we're going to run on for a minute. But I know we got to pay some bills. So before we get too deep into that, let's go ahead and let the engineer do what the engineer needs to do. Make sure this train keeps going, and we're going to pay some bills. We're going to see y'all in a little bit. Come on back, y'all.
I feel like busting loose. I said, Shala, come on, y'all say.
And now, a word from our proud sponsors. Cosmos Radio Network of the UK, proud sponsors for the Tri-City Finest, King of the Oldies, Ali Hackett, and the Princess Lovely. The international radio station that playing music that's out of this world. If you want to create a drop, release your new song with a pop, do you need an exciting intro for your video? Promote your business, product, or shows? Contact us for customized digital video packages. For more details, email us at tkbsds.org@gmail.com.
All right. About to bring this thing back with my brother. We need to finish up this conversation. Where you at, bro?
I'm right here, bro.
All right. We gotta get you back on here, man. Because as always, we digging deep into this one.
Yes, sir.
We were talking about, the woman's rise in prominence, so to speak. And now that there's been that ascension, there's now this the same treatment that they fought so hard to get away from is now being turned back on the men who were doing it.
Man, again, when big business gets into and when big business gets its hands into anything,
right,
it corrupts it. Because its primary job is to make money from it, no matter how salacious it is, no matter how degrading it is, no matter how disgusting it is. Mm-hmm. Their bottom line is making money. So the situation has to be for women as well as men. The first thing we have to do is know yourself. Know who you are. And our parents are supposed to be that blueprint for us to build upon.
So sometimes that's part of the issue.
Woo! Now that's where the shovel should have went. Yes,
hey.
Yes, sir. And it's the truth. Some have built on flawed blueprints. But even as you grow in life and as you begin to move through life, you start to recognize that's not right, because there will always be a teacher that comes along to teach you who and what you really should be and who and what you really are. I don't care. Listen, there are plenty of times I'm walking through the street and I see my young brothers out here doing what they do. Sometimes they take a little time to engage them. And after our engagement, they sit and they be like, yo, never thought of it like that.
Right.
And because I triggered a new thought, it caused them to move differently through life.
Every new thought gives them another option.
Most definitely. Boy, you dropping it. Come on,
man. Every new thought, man. You know how that works?
Yes, sir. And that's what I'm saying. It's like we have to allow this generation and our peers to be affected by our thoughts, by our ideas that are implemented in real time. I don't want you just talking to me about what a good man should be. Show me what a good man should be. There are certain people in neighborhoods where you go into and it could be the roughest neighborhood in the world. And you be like, well, why is this dude here? Like, how come nobody's ever tried him before? And it's because the neighborhood, no matter how bad it is, protects that one because of how well he treats the others in that neighborhood.
Man, you must have came to my hood, huh?
Bruh, hey, yo, that hood is in a lot of places, you know what I'm saying? And the real gangsters always protected those people. The real gangsters like, nah, you can't get involved with what we doing, son. We need you to go to school and get that. Go to school and become that doctor. For me, it was, We need you to get man. You a musician, man. Yo, come on, man. Go get in the industry, man. Drop a few albums. Like, we can't let you get down with what we do. They would let me fight because I love fighting. So they would let me fight. Oh yeah, I loved it and I was good at it.
Right.
So they would let me fight. But then even with the fighting, it came to a point. It was like, nah, man, you got to watch out for your hands. Those are your money makers.
Right.
So they wouldn't even let me fight a lot. You know, so it's like when you're a good man, when you know that you're operating from and when you're operating from a place of kindness, when you're operating from a place of integrity and honesty,
yes,
people will respect that. And as they respect that, they will also protect that.
I'm gonna share something, man, because that story just took me back to some things. And I love being transparent because you never know who is going to help, right?
Right.
My biological father, I'm still here, so I look like he looked, right? We were twins. Right. We literally had the same birthday, right?
Right.
30 years apart. I may have spent a total of 12 months with him. May have over the course of my entire life. He is passed away. We did not have that kind of relationship, but I was sent a stepfather. Now, I will be the first to say this. My stepfather was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There are a lot of people that can look at some of the things he did and go, oh, he was trifling, he was this, he was that. But one thing I will say, he showed me how to love or how to pour into young people, right? Watching some of the, like he used to get all the kids every summer, all my little cousins and stuff. And we'd all kind of get together and, hang out. He had us doing, different things, creative things, stuff like that, boxing and playing ball and all those things that kind of got kids together to give them something to do that was more constructive. He even had my cousin who was kind of outside the scope, but my cousin on my mother's side came and sat and hung out with us one summer. And that was probably like the best summer of his life. He unfortunately has been a career criminal because he only spent that one summer, right? He did not have the benefit of somebody like that pouring into him on a regular basis. And like I said, my stepfather was no saint. He was not perfect, but I can still honor the good that he did, right? I took that. And when I became a man, I poured that back out into the community that I lived in. And it was amazing to me at that time in my life. I didn't know how to take it at first, but when the young boys used to come out and be like, hey, what's up, OG? What's up, old head? It took me a minute to get used to that, but I understood that was a term of endearment. And I further understood that they would put their health on the line for me if I needed them to, because we had a mutual respect for one another. That doesn't exist anymore. That doesn't exist anymore. I hated the fact, and I don't know how it was up in NY, man, but I know in Philly, we used to have these things called block captains. Every block had like a block captain. That person was responsible for making sure the block was cleaned up. That person usually had like a fire hydrant key. So when it got hot, they could go out and open up the fire hydrants so everybody could play in. It was like the city's way of allowing autonomy in your community, right? You got to have more say in your community. You got to be more engaged in your community. And that block captain was also part of, they would form like the little neighborhood watches to make sure that our block was safe. Mm-hmm. Once they got rid of that component, once they removed anybody's responsibility from looking out for your own block, it became a free-for-all. And there was nobody. I watched the young people look for somebody to hold them accountable, but there was nobody there. I watched them, Mel, I watched them. And I watched them continue to do things like those things that you do for attention and they continued to do it, and they got to a certain point where they were so far out of it that it was all they knew.
Time. I was about to say, sometimes time robs you of things, but time never robs us. What robbed us from that was the greed of corporations for money.
Mm-hmm.
Because they begin to flood our communities with drugs and guns and fear, the fear mongering. And with that being said, the block presidents or the block captains, they didn't want to address these kids anymore, because the target where the drugs and the guns were coming from were the youth, not the older people.
Right.
And the older people are like, I fought too hard to get away from that life for you to drag me back into it now with the whole family. And then we allowed society to raise up these walls between the youth and the older. And I think it's our jobs to get back with the youth and just let them know, yeah, I'm not here to raise you. I'm here to be a sounding board. I'm here to help guide you through the areas of life that you may have not reached yet, and you don't want to go through without a guide. You don't want to go through certain areas in your life without someone who has been there, so you can at least say, what did you do, OG, when you was in that situation? Because sometimes life can become so lonely and so dark and so frightening that just on fright and fear alone, you do the stupidest things. So, you know, they eliminated all of that by putting up these walls, by putting out in movies and in TV shows that older people don't understand you. They don't care about you. They've already lived their life. They got what they need, and they're gonna leave you. Like, if you look at how the TV shows began to formulate the divide between the youth and the elderly, or the youth and the older gentleman, older woman, you know, and because they were making money, big business once again comes in, makes all the money, and after it makes all the money off of you, it throws you away and discards you. And these young guys out here they feel thrown away. They feel discarded.
Yes.
They feel, and they're looking to the older people like, yo, you didn't see what just happened. And the older people are looking like, we wanted to help, but you was threatening us. You pulled your gun out on me. You robbed my son. You shot my daughter.
And now you want me to help you, right?
Right. And so now there has to be, for us to move forward, we have to have very short memories of injustice.
Yes.
Within our own communities. Because we are only as strong as we allow ourselves to be. If my thoughts is always on the injustice that my brothers have done against me, then I will always be held captive to that injustice.
Right.
So now we gotta, yo, bro, forget all that. It's all water under the bridge. How we gonna build our community? How we gonna make sure your kids don't experience what you experience, and my grandkids won't experience what I'm experiencing or what my children are experiencing?
Right.
How do we do that?
Start from here?
Where do we go from here? And that's the point. That's the whole. I'm glad you brought this subject, because it's so necessary for us to really learn how to forgive one another. Because a lot of the things we didn't do out of malice. We did out of immaturity. We did out of just not knowing. We didn't know about the options, like as you spoke of. We didn't know about the options. Nobody else was feeding us other ideas. So we did these things not because we were trying to hurt people, but because we were trying to have fun.
It's what we knew to do,
brother. Right there.
It's what we knew to do. You know, we had, unfortunately, a lot of times a very finite set of options, a finite set of situations that we can respond, or ways that we can respond to situations. And that's how, unfortunately, a lot of systems want it to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But listen, we got to take one more break, then we're going to come back with final thoughts. But if it's cool with you, man, I definitely want to make sure we continue this conversation in the next go round.
Yes, sir. I'm with it.
All right, so we're going to turn it back over to our engineer real quick. That person that keeps the train moving down the track to make sure you get the best quality shows possible. They're going to do what they need to do. Y'all be with us when we come right back. See you in a minute.
How do you cross the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean without a boat? You do it right here with a jazzy moment with Lovely on Cosmos Radio Network.
I love the graphics. I look at these commercials like everybody else. I'm like, man, I'm amazed at the graphics that's put out there. But that being said, I don't want to get caught up in the moment. I definitely want to get back to what we're discussing because it is very relevant, very important. So I'll yield the floor to you, my brother, so we can hear your final thoughts on this.
Man, my final thought is just in order for us to really unearth the real men that we are, we have to peel off all those layers that society has put on us. Peel it off. You know, you have to peel off those layers so you can see the complexities of who you are and come to appreciate those complexities. Come to appreciate that you are more than what they told you. You are more than the narrative they tried to paint of you. And then when you realize that, you'll begin to behave like that. I can always tell what you know by the way you behave. When you behave better, it's because you know better. So that's where I'm at. Learn who you are. Don't be afraid. Sometimes you get a little nervous because you don't want people to see that vulnerable side of you, those complexities, those parts of you that say, "Dag, man, like I don't want nobody to know I struggle in these areas." It's okay. It's quite all right. We all struggle somewhere. Allow somebody in. Allow somebody to help, and don't be afraid of the help. So with that, you know, those are my keys for today. Those are my final thoughts.
Appreciate it as always. Appreciate it as always, man. It's kind of hard to follow that up, but I'm gonna come from a different perspective of it. You know, we're talking about the definition of a man, and there's many things that can qualify and quantify what a man is. But one of the things, at least one of those things for me, is how you pour back into your community. If you're not pouring back into your community, then what you are doing is you are guaranteeing the death of men in the future. You are allowing other people to determine what the males in your neighborhood, in your community, are going to be brought up as. Sadly, a lot of times we don't understand how important that task is until it's too late. I've had the good fortune and the misfortune of losing souls, saving souls and losing souls. I can tell you for certain, when you lose a soul from your community, it's a pain like you wouldn't understand. It's akin to losing your own child. Don't let that be the motivation for when you decide to step up to be a man. Understand that you have an opportunity now to pour into somebody, to help them, guide them, mentor them, and to deter them from some of these anecdotal things that we are given as male roles. Make sure you don't lose a soul before you step up. That's all I got for you today. With that being said, brother, I know it got a little deep, but it's serious, man. It's real serious. And that's why I truly appreciate you. You know, and not only do I appreciate you, but I appreciate the brothers that poured into you, because had it not been for them, we would not be here on this platform today.
Man.
Right?
Yeah, man.
As always, you know, we do it everything that we can, and we do it from a place of authenticity. As much as I wish we were getting paid for all this, that's coming soon. But as much as I wish we were getting paid for all of this, we're not. So we definitely do it from a place of love. We do it from a place of wanting better. And I understand. Listen, there's going to be a lot of people that hear us and go, "What the hell do they know?" But it's not about what we know and don't know. It's just about having a conversation.
Right. It's about sharing.
It's about having a conversation.
Yeah,
so
man.
With that being said, we're going to wrap this up, man. And please make sure you get home safe so we can make sure the next show we all here in one piece and can continue.
No doubt about it.
Because in the next show, I want to really get into the male-female component.
Definitely. I'm with it. Yes, sir.
All right, my brother. With that being said, we're going to bring this to a close. Everybody, hey, Lynette, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you, lady. With that being said, and Lynette, make sure you check us out next show, because that's going to be a more interesting show. I promise you.
Most definitely.
But again, with that being said, we're going to do our due diligence and close on out of here. Much love and peace to everybody out there. And y'all get home safe. See you next time. Peace.
Let the music tell your body how to move and feel. It can serve as medication.